The Theatre of Blood is considered the hardest raid in the game, and we mastered it. And in this video, we're going to have a little talk through about just how we did it absolutely perfectly on every boss to obtain one of the hardest combat achievements in the entire game. Okay, so first up is the Maiden. This one is not too bad, but it is a little bit of Reset City because it's very easy to mess up when you're trying to be perfect. The criteria for being perfect are you've got to avoid those blood splats right there, which you've kind of got to be pre-moving if you're close to the boss, otherwise they will hit you and you will fail the achievements. That does happen quite a lot. So essentially we need to walk backwards and sideways whenever Maiden is about to attack, which I think is every 10 ticks. I could be wrong on that one, but I think it's 10 ticks. And as for when the spiders come, at 70, 50, and 30%, it is my job to freeze any spiders that come in on those two southern tiles right at the top there. If there are none on me, then it's all up to my teammate Durin there. He is just off screen, and he will freeze the other ones and get them in a nice little pattern and then barrage them down. Those little blood spawns that run around as well are a bit of a problem. They can be a bit pesky. Luckily you can ice barrage them and freeze them and also kill them as well, because they are a massive nuisance. But yeah, at the end of the day, this boss, even though it does take a few resets, it's quite quick to do. So honestly, perfect at this one. Really not too bad once we had some good practice at it, how to dodge the bloods and the spiders and everything. So I just leave the rest of this kill playing. There's not really too much else to report. And I will see you all in Bloat. And there we go, first boss is down, no blood splats touched, no mage hits off prayer, and no spiders touching the boss. We've done that one, and now let's go to Bloat. Okay, so Bloat is a little bit scary, and this is very much Reset City because it is so easy to make a mistake. And at Bloat, what you have to do is you cannot get hit by any flies, and the flies are basically if he has line of sight of you while he's walking around the arena. Then the really hard part is you've got to dodge all those black spots on the floor as well. It's very easy to accidentally path into them. You do not have long to react. And it's, yeah, we had a lot of resets here, let's put it that way. We did get a lot more consistent towards the end, but we did have a lot of resets getting here because it's so easy to just mess it up slightly. Those little black spots, oh, they can get you. But essentially it's just salve amulet on, do a bunch of damage. If it's definitely too high HP, then just play it safe and do another cycle. It's absolutely fine. But in the end, this room, not so bad after a bit of practice. But man, is it frustrating to get hit by a black spot on the floor. But that's about it. We'll just wait for one more cycle here, and then it's on to one of the harder rooms. But we had a pretty good trick for it thanks to Runelight. So we'll be on there shortly. Toes a bit. That bloat, holy. Okay, so now we have the Spidey room, and this one at least was a little bit scary, but with the wonderful world of menu entry swapper, what we can do here is make it so we can never misclick a spider again, because if you hit a spider with the wrong combat style, you fail the achievement instantly. So that also means we can't use chin chompers, it means we can't use barrage at all, because if it does splash onto a different color spider, you'll instantly fail. But what we ended up doing was with the menu entry swapper plugin, we shift right clicked on all the spiders that didn't belong to us, the big ones and the small ones, and we made their walk here sorry, we made their left click be walk here instead. So that means that when, especially later on, when they are really annoying and change color, it means you can't accidentally click on the wrong one and fail the achievement. So yeah, Runelight definitely a big proponent on how consistent this room got in the end, because at the beginning, before we did this, oh boy, it was quite frustrating. So yeah, I would highly recommend doing menu entry swapper and just change the left click on all the other spiders to walk here. Then for me, you know, I did the small and big blue and green ones, and with that it meant that I could never misclick on a different color spider ever again, because yeah, failing this to hitting the wrong one or having it change on you just before you click, it's a bit annoying, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, so this room otherwise nice and simple really. You're not allowed the pillars, you can't have the pillars fall either. So all these little spiders, they try and attack the pillars the whole time. And as long as you're, you know, reasonably active in killing them, the pillars should be just fine. We have a couple of scary moments sometimes where one of the pillars gets a little bit disproportionately low. Whether that's from neglect or just massive amounts of spiders, I'm not sure. But on the whole, it's generally been quite nice and there's not really been any panic. Just click on the spiders with one little ham joint. And the reason I'm using a ham joint, by the way, guys, is because it is one of the very few weapons that is 3-tick melee. So normal melee, if you're just like punching or using most weapons, is 4 ticks, but this ham joint, it's 3 ticks, so it does less damage, but it does the damage more often, which is perfect for this room because they don't have much HP, as you can see. They've got 8 health, the big ones have 16 in trio at least, and it works out quite nicely. And then after these Spideys are done coming out, which isn't too long now, then there'll be a big spider. Oh god, I nearly died there. There will be a big spider in the middle, which essentially is the same as these ones, just a bigger version. When it turns white, you attack it with melee, or silver, I guess. When it turns blue, you attack with mage, and when it turns green, you attack it with range. So that is all fine and good, but you also have to make sure that you pray against it as well, because if you take a hit off prayer, you will also fail the achievement. So you've got to be very quick on the prayers and gear switches. Prioritize the prayers. That is the most important part. The gear switches can come a little bit later. So yeah, it starts off with melee in your silver mode like this, and then you'll see it'll change color. So we're going to be on our prayers straight away. Look at that, so get the mage prayer on, get the mage gear on. I don't bother with the full mage switch, just a little bit, because the range and melee parts do a lot more damage for us than the other ones. So we prioritize those, and then mage is like the reject style, basically. But it works out, and the rest of the room, nice and easy. We never failed this, by the way, in the entire time. We never ever failed on this part. And there we go, that is the room done. So now it's on to the Dark Beasty Boy, and we're taking on Sotadzeg. So Sotadzeg here, he likes to chuck out projectiles, and what they also like to do is, if 2 people are semi-nearby, then the projectiles will bounce, and they will change into a different combat style. So essentially, the yellow balls that he's firing at for me right now, which I have swapped, there's a plugin, I think it's called, you see the Sotadzeg projectiles, or it's just TOB quality of life, I don't know what, but for me, I can change the projectiles to the Inferno projectiles, which I find a little bit easier. But essentially, the lighter balls, those ones are pre-mage, and if you do bounce, like there's one on down there, you can see the orange one, that is a pre-range. You've got to be very careful on that, but essentially we have Cat and Diren at the back there, far apart with Twisted Bows, and there's me at the melee distance of the boss in order to just have us all far enough away that we're not bouncing anything. So yeah, we can't miss a prayer. We also can't miss a tile on the maze whatsoever. And if we take any hit here, even, like a melee hit, if we didn't have the melee power up, that would also fail it. But essentially what we're ideally trying to do is land the Elder Balls on the boss and then kind of wait every 33%. So ideally just above 66, just above 33, and wait for the big ball to come out and then phase it before it hits, because it makes it a little bit easier on us. That ball there. Obviously here we don't quite have the damage, same as last time, so we're just grouping up here, praying mage for any projectiles that come, tank the ball together, and then happy days. There's another range shot over there because we were close enough for that to happen. And then we are all good. And the maze is one of my favourite mechanics of Theatre of Blood, I've got to say. So one person can see the path in the Shadow Realm, and the others have to click where they click. That works out really nicely. I just had to mute my mic to sneeze, but it's okay. And we get one last element on right there. Make sure we're praying. And I'm always standing out of range if I do have a magic hit on me. Like that. Very, very, very important that the boss doesn't turn around and melee spite me. But what I can wait for is, you see it does that little headbutt animation. As soon as it does that somewhere, I can jump in and do a melee attack. But here we actually got a bit unlucky on damage, and all three of the phases we had to tank the ball, which is not perfectly ideal, but obviously it's very serviceable, completely fine. I've got my range prayer there, gotta do that. I'm being very, very careful here not to do any mistakes. And then we just finish that up, and that is Sotazeg done, so not too bad, that one. And here we have Zaras. So there's little things that spawn on the floor. They spawn pretty randomly, and it's up to us to kind of, be monitoring the whole arena and be in range of any possible spawn. Sometimes it really does feel like you just get completely screwed, because if those spawns heal the boss twice, so more than twice, then the achievement just instantly fails and you lose perfect Zaras and therefore perfect theatre. And this is just the most infuriating part, because sometimes you're just literally one square away from protecting that third one, and it sucks so much. And it's just, oh dear, like I don't like perfect Zaras. I don't think it's a good achievement. Like, it's just, yeah, like some of the spawns are just completely unfair. But it is what it is. And either way, this is the run, so, it worked. But basically, we're doing a couple of Elder Mauls at the start here, just to make sure the boss is 0 defense. And then we're going around the outside, and we are just constantly blowpiping. And every time the boss looks at us, we are moving 2 squares. Because the boss looking at us, what that does is it means that he's going to fire poison at you. And if you get hit by the poison, you guessed it, you fail the perfect achievement. And we don't want that. We don't want that. But luckily, this strat is very, very easy, actually, as it turns out. And essentially, yeah, we just attack it a bunch, look at when he looks at you, and then move. It is that simple. And then the other poison things that fly around as well, they also hit that previous square you were on, so it's absolutely fine. It is 2 squares at a time, nice and neat, really not too hard at all. Yeah, the hardest part is the pre-phase. That's saying something. But yeah, so essentially you get him down to like, what, 27% HP or something, and then he enters his final phase, which means no more acid, but it does mean that if he looks at you, which he turns around randomly, if he looks at you while you attack him, you basically one-shot yourself, and therefore fail the achievement. So you've got to be very, very careful. And what I did here is I basically camped this square, and whenever he looked away, I would attack him twice. Or once, sometimes, depending on scythe timings. So yeah, I was very, very careful. I didn't want to move because I didn't want to accidentally walk in a poison splat at all. Cat and Deeren, though, they're gamers, they're happily moving around a little bit. But I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to mess it up. That is basically Zaras done. Being very, very careful. I'm even right-clicking him to make sure I absolutely don't misclick and walk under him, because I believe that fails the achievement too, because you take some damage from him. But there we go. That is Zaras done, and now it's time for Veric. And here we have it, the final boss. The final boss, it's Veric time. And Veric is a little bit scary. So you get given this Dawnbringer thing, just after Zaras there's a skeleton. And you search it for the Dawnbringer staff. And essentially the boss takes massively reduced damage from everything, apart from the Dawnbringer special attack, which does just 100 damage basically, versus like the 10s that you'd otherwise be hitting. So you've got to manage your specs well, share it between the team. And we even brought a light bearer for this to kind of enable us to get more specs. Actually, no, not more specs, just to get more spec energy for later on in the fight. For a double claw at the end of the boss, which will be later. But yeah, essentially you've got to attack the boss a couple of times, then run back, and then when her leg gets to about 8 or 9 o'clock, you can click back on the boss. Because if you get hit by the mage projectiles, then you are in a little spot of trouble. And you will fail the achievement. So yeah, no hits allowed. Gotta watch out for the pillars as well. Very, very, very scary. There we go. As soon as it's 9 o'clock, you can just run back in and whack her down. And then everything there is honestly kind of fine. P1 is really not too bad. Phase 2, however, things change a bit in Phase 2. Phase 2 gets very, very scary. So, starting off in Phase 2, you got to pray range. And immediately, or almost immediately, she spawns some spiders. And what we have to do is we can't get damaged by them at all. So essentially we need to ice barrage all of them to make sure we absolutely do not get hit by anything. And eventually they'll just fizzle out and explode. That's all fine. That purple crab there, we do leave it alive in order to make the boss not spawn any other spiders for at least a while, at the expense of the boss healing a little bit, but that is absolutely okay. It's definitely much safer this way. And yeah, getting back into melee of Veric is very scary during spiders as well, because depending on where people are standing, the projectile speed of the boss can change. And if you've got the exact wrong circumstances, then you literally get ranged in one tick. Like, it's like an instant projectile, and it happened to me once and I was so tilted because we had an otherwise perfect kill and I couldn't believe it. But yeah, essentially here what we're doing is we are attacking the boss, and then as soon as the projectiles land on the floor, like just after it, we're clicking where they landed and then back on the boss, because essentially if you are in melee distance of the boss when it goes to attack, it will bounce you away and stun you, and most likely fire a projectile at you as well. And if you get hit by that, you lose the perfect achievement. So we've got to be very, very, very careful there. And here we've got to pray mage, because the boss starts to attack with mage. And if we took a hit off prayer again, then that would just be an instant fail. Being very careful here. We go back in. We've got the timings on relative muscle memory. And then we're back there. But yeah, those little red guys, thankfully they don't have to be completely killed. You can leave them alive, and even if they heal the boss a little bit, it doesn't fail the achievement, luckily. So we've got to watch out for that a little bit though, just making sure we are not getting hit by projectiles. But it's back and forth, as you do before. And then that is basically this phase done. If you thought this phase was scary with the tick perfect movement back and forwards all the time, no. This next phase, even scarier, let me tell you. So Veric becomes big, and she attacks on a certain tick, and you can see by my special attack bar, I've got some numbers ticking up. Essentially, I'm looking at that number right now, and I can see there, it's number 2. And Veric is on a 7-tick cycle, and essentially, what that means is I've got to walk under the boss before she goes to attack, because if I'm not under the boss and she tries to melee properly, we just all instantly fail the achievement if she melees. So if we walk under her at the exact right time, then she will do a ranged or mage attack instead. As you can see up there, there was a spider there as well, which luckily only one of them. There can be 3 that spawn. Durin froze it, we're all good there. I'm just making sure to do this tick perfectly, all the movement. If I mess up a single time, the achievement instantly fails. And I actually messed up there a little bit, so I had to skip an attack on the webs as we go around. We're essentially doing a 5-tick cycle where every time we get to the middle, we're doing a little swish swish. And then here, we actually got a bit lucky, because I don't know the timing of this, and essentially, that boss there, that could have meleeed me and failed the achievement. I nearly messed up my prayer as well. That was unbelievably close. And honestly, it was a chance. That could have been perfectly to go on if the boss decided to do something a little bit mean and melee me. So very, very lucky there. But here we're just eating up a bit and getting ready for the finale, because this part gets a bit crazy. We have to dodge tornadoes, kill the boss. So here I'm just running away waiting for the boss to attack. There we go. So then I go in. And we go on it again. I've got to dodge that tornado there. I nearly went in at the wrong timing. Nearly missed my hit. There, I'm essentially resetting aggro on me, and then I'm just running away, hoping they're going to kill it, because I do not want to get hit by melee, and that is how you do perfect theatre.
Let's go! Oh my god, that took a monumental effort from the gang, but holy crap, do we deserve that. God, we deserved that so freaking much. We played so well. Oh, we played so well. I am so relieved that we got that. Entire TB completely perfect. Never again, honestly. Dude, my hands are like tingling. Never freaking again. The Deer and Cat, you two are legends. I've got to say, absolute legends. Thank you so much for grinding that. I really, really, really appreciate that so much.